Decided that since I married a winemaker, I might as well learn what he does. So that's when I got started. We were in Virginia, spent 18 years in Virginia. Then we moved to North Carolina in 2000, and I was a consultant. I still am a consultant, but I mean, I really focused on consulting in North Carolina, and I didn't work for anyone. And then in 2011, we moved to Pennsylvania, southern Pennsylvania, and Gettysburg area, and my husband and I he was the winemaker and I was the vineyard manager at a winery there. Plus I also taught viticulture at Harrisburg Area Community College. So then after 5 years of that, we went back to North Carolina, but we don't actually have any work there. so I am, well, he does, but I don't. So now we are at Boxwood Winery in Northern Virginia, Middleburg, and that is our half-time work, and the rest of the time we're consulting. And last year, the Maryland Wineries Association hired me because I do business planning and that kind of thing as well, to develop a financial tool. But the first thing I had to do was, because according to Kevin Addix, who was here first thing this morning, the winery industry needs more grapes. Okay, so that I needed to delve down and find out, well, what are they looking for? So anyway, some of this talk answers that. But I want to, if you're new to this, the first thing you got to do is, what is your vision and why do you want a vineyard? I used to have a slide where it showed somebody getting married in the vineyard and sitting there looking romantic with your glass of wine over your grape crop. That's all wonderful. That's about 1% of your time, maybe. The rest of it is you're going to work hard. So you got to be passionate and know if your goals are realistic. And what resources do you already have? So, do you have the land? Do you have a similar business, like maybe growing apples? When we moved to Hauser Estate in Pennsylvania, they had 350 acres of apples. So then my husband had to learn how to make cider. So that took off there. So anyway, so getting started, the first thing you need to do is do a little research, visit vineyards in your area, find out what grows well, visit wineries, what do they sell successfully, what wine is good. And one of the ways to do that without even asking the question, if you're at their tasting bar and it's 2019 and they have a 2015 Viognier, there's something going on there. I mean, it's not moving fast enough. It could be their marketing, it might be the wine, who knows what, but I don't want a Viognier that's 4 years old myself. So that's one thing to look. How many vintages are they trying to sell? How far behind are they? Ask vendors at trade shows. You've got to go to trade shows. Even if you're not yet ready to buy anything, you get to see, what's going on. And of course, consultants, trade magazines. Oh, I thought I also had on here, must be another slide or another presentation. You need to talk to your extension agents. Joe Fiola is a place to start here in Maryland, but also your county extension agent might be well versed in this too. So go ahead, Jana.
And also the trade association, for example, the Maryland Wineries Association, we provide startup seminars for people who want to get into craft beverage businesses, so you understand the process of becoming a licensed winery. So, if you just want to have a vineyard, that's one thing, but if you do want to become a licensed winery, there is a whole process to sort of undertake, and we provide guidance to you as to how to kind of work through that permitting and regulatory process and understanding what needs to be done at the county, state, and federal level.
Right. So, and the last bullet is what varieties you grow. It depends on your site and your market and not your preference. I worked for somebody that in North Carolina was growing Riesling, and he put it in the cold spot with no sunlight and trees all around. He says, well, this is a cold weather grape, so that's the cold spot. And I said, well, there's no sunlight there, there's no airflow there. This is the most tight clustered grape you can grow. It's going to rot. And yeah, it rotted. Of course, he had to blame me, but the problem was the site. So just because he liked Riesling. So guess what? Finger Lakes grows great Riesling. So anyway, so there's some scenarios of how you want to be a business. You might just want to be a commercial grower, just grow the grapes. You might be a winery that grows all their own grapes, or some hybrid like a commercial grower plus a tasting room, or a small winery business that you sell some of your grapes, you know. So we're gonna look at this a little bit more, because this is what you need to be considering. Where are you gonna fit in this scenario? So the vineyard only business, you need to find out, what do the wineries want? And I'm gonna show you what they want towards the end of this. And then ask them, under what conditions will you buy my grapes? You know, what are the expected tonnage? What's the quality parameters? You know, what do you want me to deliver in refrigerated trucks? Yes. You know, how do you want to harvest? What kind of temperatures? Those kind of things. How much money are you going to pay me? Are we going to have a contract? And how are you going to help me? So the best thing to be successful as a vineyard in this business is to have a partnership with the winery. And I mean, and I'm not talking about a contractual partnership. I'm talking about a long-term, you're going to help me, you're going to come visit my vineyard so many times a year, make sure we're on the right track, and just work together. I think the most successful vineyards are the ones that are still, you know, selling to the same winery 10 years after they started. So, I did have that, okay. So then there's the vineyard plus winery, and this is when you have some way you're going to sell some grapes. You're going to transfer some of those grapes into wine for your sales, okay, whether or not you sell the rest of your grapes. So I had a client that they were just going to put in about 10 to 12 acres, and in the beginning they said they just wanted to be a grower. I said, well, we got to find out what the wineries want, so we did. And then they go, well, I might have a tasting room. I said, well, then you have to decide. See, you're only growing 2 or 3 varieties. Well, now if you're going to have a tasting room, don't you think you need a little bit more than that? So you've got to bring that into your mind when you're making that combination business. You know, you got to make sure that you're growing grapes you need and grapes that wineries want. And so you can have fun with Excel spreadsheets to play with this. And one of the things you also need to know, which I don't think is anywhere on here, is I had a client just wanted 3 acres, but he only wanted a vineyard, but he wanted 10 different varieties. I said, you're not going to be able to sell that low volume to anyone. Let's do 3 varieties and do several clones of each variety. You know, that'll work. And it did, but he still ended up pulling it out, because you cannot make money on 3 acres. And he just wanted to do it for fun for a while, I think. So, okay. So we're gonna look at some income towards, just a little play. 30-acre vineyard, 10 acres of hybrids, 20 acres of vinifera, and split that way. Can everyone see my slides okay? Because I tried to be really big. So, vineyard only, and these numbers per ton are based on my study that I worked with the Maryland Wineries Association, and we'll come back to that, especially if you stay till tomorrow and you see my talk that justifies how I got those numbers. But, and I put the varieties like that because, let's say red vinifera blend 1, because we decided all red vinifera was going to be $2,700 a ton. It doesn't matter what red vinifera is in there. But I put it that way because we're going to make it wine here in a minute. All right, so now as a winery that makes all their grapes into wine, guess what just happened? You just multiplied your income by 10. You went from $244,000 to about $2,300,000 something. So that's always been a 10x figure that we've told people. You know, if you want to make more money, you've got to turn it into wine. So, all right. So now we go to Well, I don't want to turn it all into my wine. I want to sell it. So let's assume you're going to sell 85% as grapes and you keep 15% for yourself. And here's the bottle price. Now, I just kind of made these up from my experience of going to wineries, and they're actually a little on the low end, I think. But, you know, $18 for a really nice Chardonnay, for example, you know, and $18 for a Chambourcin. You know, Tremaine, how much are you selling your Chambourcin for?
24.
24. Uh-huh. Okay, so these are low, but still makes a point that my income now for grapes and wine is almost $500,000. And so you see let's see what's happened. I got to remember this. I worked on 3 presentations for this meeting. So okay, so let's see. I'm still using this per ton price over here because I want to show you that, because the next slide is very interesting. We've always said as grape growers, we don't make enough money. They like Viognier. Let's go back to Viognier. We used to sell it for $2,000 a ton. And I said, there is no way. We spend so much time and labor with that, you know, bastard. So we need $3,000 a ton. Did anybody give us? No. So, I mean, in 1 year we'd have 1 ton an acre, next time 3 tons an acre. It was a losing proposition. So, all right. So now, okay, what did I do? Maybe it's not in this talk. It isn't. It's in tomorrow's talk. I did a little thing tomorrow, what I do, because I'm talking to the whole industry tomorrow. And I want to point this out to the winery owners, that they need to be, if $18 a bottle is what they're selling my grapes into their wine, then I want $1,800 a ton. So I show that tomorrow. It's probably going to cause a lot of consternation, but you know, I'm going to kind of make that point. And this number goes up, believe me, and you might be able to make a living then. So it's difficult. So here's my overall comparison of the 3. So just by making 15% of your grapes into wine, and this could be through a custom crush, you know, or building your own little winery, whatever, but you've doubled your income. So that's kind of cool. So, all right, now what I'm going to switch gears and show you, the first thing I did with my project was I surveyed the Maryland wineries themselves. What do you want? What are you going to, you know, just a lot of questions I'm going to go over. These were the top 10 varieties. 97 tons of Cabernet Franc are needed in this industry. And so I did an acreage conversion. It's about 32 acres. So 25 wineries want that.
That's 97 additional tons of Cab Franc.
That's what they want.
Wow.
In addition to what they already have. That's 145 more acres just for the top 10 varieties.
When was the survey?
Last year.
Gotcha.
It was, we put it out around January,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, or February, yeah. Okay, so.
One of the interesting things is for the reds too, is the blending component of that, you know, with the Cab Franc, the Merlot, or the Cabernet Sauvignon.
Right, and the Petit Verdot.
Is having that flexibility, you know, to do
Right.
really nice blends and have, you know, consistency, you know, from year to year potentially.
Right, and if you're going to plant a 30-acre vineyard, I'd suggest having more than one variety, you know, because you may decide you want a little bit of that 10 times price too, okay? So these were, you know, 11, 12, 13, these are more. And I still didn't show you all of them because I knew it would just get too busy up here on this slide, so I just wanted to if you want to look at that one a little bit longer. Chardonnay is 46 tons, Albarino 33 tons. Remember that because it's interesting that I also asked, what did you buy the previous year? And they didn't buy any Albarino because nobody had it for sale. So that's also interesting.
So the wineries could have absorbed like almost 500 tons of fruit last year.
Yeah, that's what they wish they had had.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's good.
yeah.
That's also in sort of keeping with the 51% requirement, that's gone into effect for anybody who's newer and for anybody, who's an existing, who wants to remain a class 4 winery by, 2022, when, anybody who's an existing winery has to meet that 51% or 20-acre, requirement. So.
Okay.
That also was right after the really crappy 2018 when everyone didn't have anything. So that shows that there's a huge need because most people lost 40 to 60%.
There's also some questions I asked that I don't show, like, are you planting more acreage next year and that kind of thing. And there's at least 200 acres more going in that the wineries themselves are putting in. So, but according to Kevin, that's already changed. Well, when he first hired me, when y'all first hired me to do this, there was a need for 200 acres more. He's already said today it was 365 acres more. So, I mean, it's not going down, it's not going away. But add that 464 to 165, that's 600 plus tons. And like I said, I didn't show everything because I have an advisory panel for this project. And, we will look through all these and just basically they're good people. They're very knowledgeable, a lot of experience. Joe Fiola's on it as well. And we just said, well, there's one winery that wants 10 tons of, Viognier, and guess what? We took Viognier out because we just all agreed, let's not mess with Viognier. So we don't want we don't want new growers to work with something that's difficult. Let's try the easier stuff first. Okay, so then we asked, what are your current fruit sources? So about 51% says it's estate.
I'm just commenting, only 4 of the grapes that were on that list of 20 were hybrids. This is not, I want to comment on your last statement.
Okay.
I want things to be too difficult. Growing vinifera is difficult.
That's right, you're right. And this is Tom Grogan, by the way. He's got, I'm having a Doden Vineyards down in Annapolis, in case you don't know him. So other Maryland growers are getting 20% of their grapes. West Coast is about 17%. There's one grower I know that gets a lot of grapes or juice from Chile. So now I asked the wineries how many have bought grapes or juice from out of state. 35 wineries said they had. That's 67% of the ones that responded to the survey. And it's funny, not the same number of wineries did not answer every single question. So, and then 38 of them are seeking to purchase grapes. They were the ones that probably filled out that huge tonnage. And now we asked, how important is it to you to buy Maryland fruit? And 14% said some importance. Nobody said no importance at all. And the some importance ones are probably the ones that have all they need. But it's interesting that 86% said it's got some importance. And and 53% was extremely important or very important. So, we have a market here. And how do they prefer to pay? This is one I'd like to tackle. By the ton, 41 wineries and 3 by the acre. And this is an issue because when you're a grower, you have an incentive to produce a lot of grapes, and you're not going to go out there and thin. And I've worked for so many people like, well, I need everything we got. Don't, I used to work for a guy. He said, when I went out to shoot thin the Pinot Noir in North Carolina, problem right there. He goes, don't shoot thin. Don't take any shoots off that have fruit on them, or have the little inflorescence. So I had these big cargo pants, and I'd go out there and I'm sorry, that's got to go. And because he would come out and look on the ground, and I'm not, he doesn't know any better. He didn't know any better. And I'm just not going to argue. I'm just going to take care of it. so I did. And the Pinot Noir was pretty good, but not great because it's North Carolina. So the by the acre incentive is a much better way to go, and when you have a long-term relationship, perhaps you can get to that. There are some wineries in Virginia that do that. I don't know of any in Maryland. I guess maybe they do, by 3 of them do. No? You would love it? Yeah, and see what that does also, it helps the winery, it helps assume some of the risk. You're the ones that are out there looking at monsoons coming in September at harvest, 14 inches of rain and et cetera, you know, that's messing with your crop. And so, you know, if the winery is giving you a price per the acre, they are also going to lose. You're not losing by yourself. In other words, you understand what I mean? They're helping you with that risk.
But just because they want to, the assumption is that if you go by the acre, you're getting better quality, right?
Well, exactly.
But that's the assumption. So.
Well, it's proven to be the case with the long-term growers that have this kind of relationship with their winery. You know, it's just a thing about trust. And additionally, when you're picking grapes, some of some people pay by the lug or pay by the pound. They pay the picker. So guess what? They're putting everything in there too. I found everything from Cheetos to little army men that, you know, everything, because their kids are out there throwing stuff in there. So no, that's not the way I like to pay. I like to pay by the hour, and I tell them, you know, to pick out the rot or go home. I mean, that's the time to really get the first culling is in the vineyard when you see rot. And, you know, you're going to have rot, especially if you let it hang long enough to get ripe. There's going to be some rot issues. So, and it depends on the variety too, of course.
And this also just speaks to the larger issue of improving quality across the board for the industry. You know, that the idea of the
exactly
by the ton. You know, the aim here is for the industry to develop and continue developing its reputation of making high quality wine, and that can only be done when you've got a high quality grape. So
right.
It's an incentive for the winery itself to be very particular about the product that they're getting, so that they are making a high quality product, because the market is getting a little bit more crowded, and the lower quality products, you know,
gets the little $1,200, $500 a ton.
Not to belabor this, but I guess I'm a very new grower. When people talk about a good quality grape versus a bad quality grape, I don't understand what that means. And like when people put up pricing and so forth, is the industry not such that if I'm a winery and I'm on the market to buy grapes, but I have a relationship, a long-standing relationship with an old vineyard, or I see a new one coming, it seems to me that the first thing I'm going to do is be like, okay, let me look at your crop this year, or as it's playing out through the year, and I'm going to want to have key metrics. I want to measure the bricks. I want to taste it. Does the industry have like standards to assess what a good quality grape is? Or
Sure. I mean, it depends.
By reputation.
It depends on your contract too. So, you know, sometimes there's some stipulations in the contract. Hopefully the winemaker comes out, because I don't believe in picking based on numbers. The numbers keep you in the ballpark, and you know where you are. Like there's some really interesting numbers actually that, like weight per berry. When you go down to weight per berry and sugar per berry, that is you will see when that starts changing, and then you realize you're just losing water and it's not ripening anymore, and you actually can see that's the numbers that nobody uses because they're not aware of them yet, but that's coming around. Virginia's starting to work on that some.
So right now it doesn't sound like there is a really good set of metrics where if I'm running a winery, I don't want to pay by the ton or by the acre. I want to pay based on quality.
Well, you do. It's both. It's always both. I mean, and you have the right to refuse. You should be able to say, man, I can smell the vinegar from here, take that back.
I guess
you know.
Based on what criteria is there a set of metrics?
Yes, Tom, go ahead.
If you're
a large winery that wants to produce a $10 or $15 bottle of wine, that requires a different set of activities in the vineyard and a different, I don't want to say quality, but a different level of ripeness and that sort of, you can tolerate more flexibility than if you want to produce a $50 plus bottle. So it's really about your relationship with the purchaser. And I think one of the things that Joyce said was get those long-term contracts.
Right.
Okay, so I'm moving on.
Well, Rachel?
Oh, well, I only had one more slide anyway, it looks like.
No, I was just gonna say, I think like if you're starting to build your reputation in terms of as a new grower, you know, if you're working, obviously, building, if you say that you're gonna have Cabernet Franc, 2 years or something, you are able to have some sort of buyer lined up, which is a winemaker that, has been in vineyards and says, okay, these are the kind of parameters as a contract ahead of time to help ensure that you're going to produce high quality fruit. That's what I've done. And I've noticed that that's a big difference in terms of making sure that both sides are happy and in terms of being able to produce better fruit. So some sort of contract to say that you're going to have to come out.
Right. So the focus of my work for this, for the Wineries Association has been to look at large vineyard plantings. So I developed a financial tool that starts at 10 acres and goes up to 100. And it's the only reason you can stop at 100 and say, okay, I want to put in 200, and then you can just double most of my numbers, in that way. That gives you the increments to do that if you wanted to. So what's going to eventually happen is we're going to give the tool to you. So Kevin passed out this flyer right here. So we have May 12th is the date that, and location to be determined, that we're actually going to have a day-long workshop about grape growing, because I feel the way I set this up was to be very high quality grapes. Okay, so I determined certain spacings and things like that, and the assumptions I'm going to introduce tomorrow that I used for this tool. And so we want you to take, we'll give you the little flash drive. You'll go home and you'll play around with it, and it's pretty much open architecture. So I saw a Cornell presentation recently where they're doing their financial tool. They have a financial thing that they update every 5 years or so. And I noticed that his assumptions included used equipment and things like that. You can't count on that, but I can show you how much new equipment can be. But if you go out and find used equipment, guess what? You'll be able to plug it right in, take out my number, put your number in, and that's fine. I mean, that's you. And also, none of the dealers or sellers would give me what is their percent off in volume discount. So if I'm a 100-acre vineyard and I want to get 3 tractors, what kind of deal you're going to make? They're not willing to tell me that. But when you go and you're on the cusp of ordering 3 tractors from them, I guarantee you're going to get some kind of discount. So those are factors that could not be put into this tool that you will be able to, add it on your own. So tomorrow I'm talking twice. One with my advisory panel members will be up here too. And so we'll get into this kind of discussion that we've been talking about today. They have experience. I've got one that's only been growing, now he's putting in a winery. I got one that Bordy Vineyards has, how many hundreds of acres does Bordy have? But they still buy grapes. And then Ed Boyce and Black Ankle Vineyards, who doesn't buy any grapes, he's just, self-contained. But we have all the different levels of experience. So, and John Levenberg's on the panel, Joe Fiola is too. So I had all these experts help me make some of those assumptions and those decisions. So, anyone coming tomorrow? Can you come tomorrow? Okay, that's great, because we'll get more in depth, especially Oh, and I did want to mention economies of scale. Where that happens really is in your capital investment and your equipment costs, okay? Because it still takes the same amount of labor. And guess what? Because these are larger plantings, there's a lot of mechanization involved anyway. But there's still particular labor intensive tasks. Nobody can shoot thin. There is no shoot thinning device that I know of. It's got to be a person. So, so anyway, I grouped equipment costs into these categories. And then, as you can see, 10 acres, buying equipment is going to cost you $20,000 an acre. But if you buy new equipment for 100 acres, it's $7,000 an acre. So, because you still have to have a tractor for 10 acres. You know, for 100 acres, it's less of, you know, it's not it's not 10 tractors, in other words, okay? But for 10 acres, you still need a tractor. So that's where that comes into play. And you can see that's also on one of my spreadsheets in the tool. So, and that's it. And my advisory panel members are listed there, and my email address. And this is Pinot Gris, by the way. I love how it has these little cute mutations and stuff. I love seeing that. So anyway, any other questions or discussion? Nicole, you got any last? Or I'm sorry, Jana. You got any last comments?
Questions about wineries, or if you do have questions about starting a winery, we're also happy to talk to you.
Yep, okay.